This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and my neighborhood, the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I would get dropped off at around 3 p.m. and my parents would be home around 4:30. Not that big of deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until later, around 7, and my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 p.m. because she had a parent-teacher conferences at the school. This happened in early fall, so it wouldn't even be dark until like 8:30 p.m. I did what I usually did when I got home. I ran upstairs, got on my Xbox 360, and played Minecraft with my friend, Seth. I was playing for about 2 hours when I heard the car door shut in my driveway. No one should have been here until like 7 p.m. My parents had windows that overlooked the driveway, so with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of the driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat, wearing a pink camo, hoodie, and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was already almost out of view, walking up my walkway to the front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends or someone my dad hired to do something, but he would usually tell me if someone was coming over. Soon after, I heard a knock at the door. Then another. I went to my other window that had a better view of the walkway. I saw the guy walking back down. I switched back to the window overlooking my driveway. I'm reeling all of this to Seth through the mic. I told Seth he was walking back to his truck, but instead, he walked past and tried to open my garage side door. At this point, my heart sank. I told Seth, this guy just tried to get into my house. It was literally broad daylight at 5 p.m. Luckily, the door was locked. Sometimes we forgot to lock it. After he tried the garage, he started walking into my back patio. I dropped my headset and quietly ran downstairs to see what he was doing. I stood behind the wall so I wasn't visible from the back door or the living room windows. I just listened. I heard him try the doors and I heard a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick on the ground or something. I was more scared than I had ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in the house was in the kitchen. I'd have to cross the living room to get there, and he could see me. A few seconds after the thud, I peeked around the corner and he was gone. I ran back upstairs, put my headset on, and told Seth that he just tried the back door. As I was telling him this, I heard another car door shut. This time when I looked out the window, he finally got into his truck. I looked closer and noticed the only things in his truck bed were a crowbar and a shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to grab my iPod and take a picture of his license plate, but he was parked in a way I couldn't see it. Then, he slowly backed out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes later, I went downstairs to see what the thud was. At the back door, the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had been moved as well. He was looking for a key. We had a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant spots on a ledge near the door, not under the big ones he checked. I went to the front porch, and all the pots looked like they had been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he had found the key or just decided to break in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he called a cop over and I gave him the description. The guy never came back. This fucked me up for a while and I'm still not completely okay, but it's easier to cope. It was the middle of the summer and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in Cape Cod. It's about 2 hours drive away, so it was no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. My mom had made some pulled pork and pasta for me to heat up whenever, and I had some money if I wanted to order a pizza. The first night I stayed up until 3 in the morning playing Xbox, so I woke up really late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up and saw it was a little past 1. I had made plans to play street hockey with my friends at 3, so I threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents are gone, I go mental. I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone, scrolling through Reddit and Twitter, when I heard my front door open. The bathroom is directly up the stairs from the back door, and it makes a pretty loud noise when it opens and closes. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ears trained, trying to hear anything else. Nothing. I figured it was just the wind or maybe my parents were home early, so I turned off the shower, wrapped my towel and around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. The stairs to the kitchen are pretty tight and walled in, so I couldn't see into the kitchen while walking down. Even though my house is old and each step on the stairs creaks loudly, I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took 45 seconds walking down all 12 stairs. When I got to the second to last step right before I could see around the corner, I took a deep breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anything in the kitchen. There is no way I wouldn't have heard another noise. After mentally chastising myself for being such a wuss, I chuckled at how paranoid I was. Then, I walked normally down the last 2 steps and turned the corner into the kitchen, standing about 2 feet away from me. In the middle of the kitchen was a man staring straight at me, perfectly still, with a massive smile across his face, just staring. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his sides. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I have ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but rotated almost completely backwards, lifted up and slightly behind him. I don't know why I remember these details so much, but it was the most demonic and unnatural posture I had ever seen. Honest to God, I think I almost had heart attack right there. Looking back, I can realize how fucking creepy it was, but in the moment, I just stepped forward and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, half slap, half push, knocking him backwards. The second I connected, I bolted upstairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen, my heart beating out of control. I sprinted into my room, locked the door and shoved the chair under the knob like you see in TV shows. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911. Nearly in tears, I told the operator what happened. As I sat on the floor in practically the fetal position, staring at the door, praying a cop would be here soon, I noticed something. The light from the gap under my door was gone. The fucker was standing right outside my door. There was no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear, watching the shadow shift in tiny movements across the gap. I stayed curled up, staring, praying he would leave. for what felt like an hour. All the while, the 911 operator kept saying, "Hello, sir, are you there? Hello?" I didn't want to make a noise, and even if I wanted to bring the phone to my mouth, I don't think I could have moved. Eventually, the light returned under the door. I heard the faintest footsteps, slowly creaking the wooden floorboards. As he walked down the hall, it went silent for minutes as I just sat there, frozen. Finally, I heard banging on the front door and the sound of two officers entering my house. I opened my door and nearly cried when I saw them. Nowadays, my parents don't leave me home alone anymore. I check every lock before bed. I still get nightmares, and my heart races whenever I see someone standing still. Even after working with sketch artists and looking at lineups, the police never found whoever the fuck was in my house. That thought sends shivers down my spine every time I look outside, half expecting to see him standing across the street, smiling under a lamp post. I have no idea what he wanted or who he was. This happened well over 10 years ago, so I will try my best to describe the events accurately. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine via big, double glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony were two trees, one of which I often used to climb up and down from the balcony. This balcony faced out to the street. One night, when I was about 13 years old girl, and my brother and mother weren't home, I was reading in bed with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside, but this didn't worry me as possums and bats are common in our area. Now, I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony. As mentioned previously, the doors faced out towards the street where the street lamp light was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I saw a shadow slowly move past the doors. At that point, I immediately turned off my reading light and froze like a deer in headlights. The shadow was tall, so it wasn't one of my neighbor kids that I'm friends with, and it wasn't my 5 feet tall mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying not to be noticed. They likely wouldn't have been able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the street lights behind them creating a dark silhouette. They moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do, other than be absolutely still. That is, until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to open a glass door. My mom's doors to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely. All I had to do was wait for them to realize that and then they would leave, right? Well, I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors, until I saw his shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me. He couldn't know I could see him. I saw the shadow of a hand reach up to my door handle and my heartbeat stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it didn't open. It was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief that I worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile phone, as my mom thought me too young to have one yet. The landline was at the other end of the house, but I was too scared to take my eyes off this person, even to call for help. I was silently crying, tears falling down my cheeks as I internally prayed they would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know?" Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on the balcony moved out of the sight, and I heard a loud sob as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical, and I was barely coherent in telling her what happened. Eventually, I got the message across and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had recently been reported for attempted child abductions near my school, just a block away. Since I walked that short distance daily, the police suspected that he had followed me or seen that I lived there and waited for me to be alone.